Hey everyone, it's Airborne. Just wanted to contribute for my first day of Infinite Summer, the whole program that Ketsui and Stealth are rallying the community behind right now, trying to get content pushed out every day. It doesn't matter what it is. So I'm not going to really start with tech. I'm going to start with my favorite thing, which is analysis. So I'm going to do a Monday matchup. I'd like to really highlight a matchup that I really find very interesting and very intricate in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and that's Winter Soldier versus Hawkeye. Two of the most lame characters, but it's a very dynamic matchup. It feels, most people say it's slightly in Winter Soldier's favor, maybe completely in Winter Soldier's favor, but there's a lot of different things that come into play, especially when you have players like Dual Kevin and Johnny A, which is the matchup that I'm going to be using to analyze this. On top of all that, I'm, as you can see, my little preview to the left of me, your left, is a little different this time. You're seeing some extra features. So I just remembered that I got a Surface Pro as a college graduation gift. And I bought a desktop, so it's a few years old, but it still works. And I don't really have the pin anymore. The battery's corroded and exploded, so it's clogged, and there's not really a realistic way with how thin it is to be able to actually get it out without really damaging the pin. So I ordered a new one, but I'm hoping this is the beginning of something to really push the Marvel minds and that type of content into a new direction. So as you can see, I have another computer that I'm using that I can draw on using a program called Telestrator that you can find on the Microsoft Store. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. So as you can see, I have a little preview set up here. I'm going to pause it right after I start it, and I'm basically going to illustrate a majority of what this matchup is and how to look at it first glance. Alright, so as you're going to see, both characters back up. So this main thing right here is that exploding arrow represented by the red X. This is the secondary thing that is a result of the primary thing in this matchup, which is going to be Winter Soldier stance. Okay, it's just giving me squares. Guess let's clear that up real quick. So we got the exploding arrow here, and we're just gonna draw this. So Winter Soldier's arm stance is very pivotal in this matchup because it blocks a lot of Hawkeye's arrows. There are a few things in this matchup that Hawkeye actually has at his disposal in order to deal with arm. It eats all the arrows. It eats Spritzer. I think it eats all the vertical arrows. I'm not for sure on that, but it leaves Hawkeye vulnerable to pistol gun shots and allows Winter Soldier to actually close the gap and everything, so he really doesn't have time to do that. And so basically, exploding arrow can hit his feet once it's on the ground, and when he's full screen, Hawkeye can actually shoot an arrow at his toe. His I believe it is forward heavy punch. No, it's back heavy punch. You know which one? The downward angled heavy punch. So that's the main thing here. Hawkeye's arrows also, he can put another exploding arrow about half screen there where the red line is, where the Combo Breaker logo is. And then obviously he has everything that works in this direction, but it's completely invalidated by the arm. I'm going to keep these white lines here because they're very important for Winter Soldiers. Just imagine they're all straight. Anyways, so Winter Soldier, the arm stance actually covers, we're going to say, about down to his knee. Just trying to display here, this is the amount, or this is everything that basically covers him and what projectiles he can nullify with his arm stance, which is, the most pivotal thing about the character. So as you can see, if Winter Soldier is any closer, the exploding arrow will make contact with his arm. Rather, if he's closer than where the furthest exploding arrow is. So if he's in this distance here, that's a line. That's not what I want. This distance here, then the furthest exploding arrow will not clip his feet. It'll actually hit his arm and blow up. So that's one thing. And then that downward angled arrow that I represented with this white line that's descending towards the left, that is that will get nullified by the arm as well. So it's very important that Hawkeye controls this matchup from full screen. That being said, Winter Soldier has to be able to find a way to close the gap and maintain that mid-range where his arm is most effective. Hawkeye has a slide and other moves and everything that can get under the arm, but he controls very much of what Hawkeye does at that range. So we'll let this match play out. Just for a forewarning, I'm going to be playing the first, third, and fifth games. All right, so we got Kevin, getting the hit here, trying to go for a reset. And Venom's going to be closing the gap here, forcing Dante into the air. One thing that's important, really won't detail very much, is that Venom does very well in this matchup when he has his partner, basically being a meat shield for him, so he can develop his weapons. And Kevin's able to get the air-to-air on Johnny's Venom. We saw a combo drop that didn't force Johnny to burn his 2 bars until here. And then, essentially just Dante trying to maintain the gap here. One thing that I would like to mention also is that the only moves that Dante has in the air that can actually clear the arm is basically just Helmbreaker. Everything else will require him, using a sweep or a low. Almost all of his projectiles actually don't reach low enough. So, like run and gun full screen, for instance, doesn't work like Hawkeye's arrows do. Johnny A is able to play defense very well in the box after Kevin drops one crucial confirm. And Kevin's able to show his defense here, blocking all of the Winter Soldier lockdown. So that's one thing to notice, is that Johnny's trying to control what Kevin does with Hawkeye after he drops his arrows. He's trying to control that mid-range, trying to make him think about what he's going to be doing with those follow-up arrows. Or as a follow-up to those arrows, rather. And we're going to back up here real quick just to demonstrate something. So it's about here. So as you can see, Johnny A is trying to close the gap while Kevin is doing anti-air arrows, the slightly angled upward ones, to check that. Johnny A's answer to exploding arrow is to hop over it and get a downward gunshot. And Kevin's is to try to answer that with an upward angled arrow. So you see him get a freeze here and is able to get the confirm off the reflect. Unfortunately, the HSD is very awful when you ever get ice restood rather. Makes no difference for Johnny. He's able to close the gap and everything, pressure Kevin, force him to bait out a button on defense. And that's basically the end of this. You're going to see Kevin almost make a comeback. He's, working his way in. And Johnny A is going to take this game and then essentially take the second game with very much of what we saw earlier in this game. Basically the same thing. Kevin's going to adapt game 3, though, which is what we're going to fast forward to. Might help to actually get closer to the start of the match. Okay. So as you can see, he's laid the arrow down. And where'd my mouse go? This touchscreen. So going back a little bit. Alright, so as you can see here, Kevin is slowly pushing him back. Basically, every time Johnny A goes up, we see Kevin jump with him and shoot arrows across. And that's covering all the gap because Winter Soldier's bullets always move in mostly downward angle. The only thing that he really has horizontal is falling light kick machine gun and jump forward heavy punch, which is only one projectile. So it'll get quickly nullified by things like triple arrow. So as you can see, with Kevin placing the arrow here, it gives Kevin all of this real estate since he has the air covered right now with triple arrow, which is forcing Johnny to stay grounded so that he's not forcing a block stun, and allows Kevin to advance and get the shock trap going. We'll just say it's right here-ish. So he drops the shock trap. It allows to force him in block stun. Dante's able to get in and start some sort of pressure while he's doing the anti-air arrows. And Kevin, tried to set up a space surge situation, but he unfortunately didn't get the right timing on what he was looking for. Johnny A was actually able to jump out and not stay grounded. But anyways, he has him backed into the corner. Johnny's fighting his way out. I'm going to clear this. All right, here's another very important part about this matchup, specifically for Johnny. So Johnny's team is very unique as a Winter Soldier Venom team. It's closest to, I would say, Rambam's, where Venom is... most Winter Soldier teams are based on Winter Soldier being entirely support and the point character being the rushdown that complements and is able to compensate for his lack of mix-ups and everything, that's able to take full advantage of that lockdown super. Venom is able to contribute this guy right here. Hopefully this black shows up. Doesn't really show up that well, so we'll use the white. That Venom trap is pivotal, because as you can see, if we want to flip the script here real quick, since Kevin's on the first player side, that exploding arrow is going to go there. What's important about that is that the Venom trap will trigger the exploding arrow as soon as it comes into contact, and Winter Soldier will be able to do as he pleases without having to worry about being space surged into the exploding arrow. And that way he can take more advantage of his arm and do everything to punish Kevin. A lot of things that he's going to be using, like the light kick machine gun while in arm stance and everything, is a perfect coverage for Hawkeye when he's crouching full screen, so he's not able to do any trick shots underneath. So while the Venom trap is out, Kevin has to answer it. This allows Venom to close the gap, forcing Kevin to retreat to the air, and then Venom has to jump into the air with him in order to check him with the web zip. Since Kevin hasn't committed anything, Johnny doesn't follow through with the web zip and doesn't commit any further. He just backs off. Tries to renew the Venom trap. It lasts for 7 seconds. And since Hawkeye comes back onto the screen, he's looking for an opportunity to tag Winter Soldier back in, because that is the ideal matchup for this specific player matchup. So as you can see, he's laid the Venom trap. And the exploding arrow gets mostly answered by that Venom trap. All right, and Kevin's doing his best to push the gap now. As you can see, every time that Johnny is jumping, Kevin is looking to contain that jump, because Winter Soldier, as I was saying earlier, everything he does to answer exploding arrow when it's on the ground is going to be shooting his guns down from these angles. And we're going to do some slightly diagonal ones to represent the machine gun. So you're going to see a lot of jump forward gun, which is this second to top arrow here. This is the jump gun. The blue is the super jump gun. And then the red is the light kick machine gun with those three. So that's mostly what you're going to be seeing in those situations. Whenever the exploding arrow is on the ground, that's what Johnny A has to do. But as I was addressing earlier, Kevin is able to use his standing arrows. We're just going to draw the arrow there to take care of that normal jump situation. If Johnny A is super jumping, then Kevin can, just not worry as much and try to develop some anti-air arrows, get Dante on the screen, cover the ground, make sure that Venom is not able to make his presence known with his amazingly strong tag. It's forcing Johnny A into the air. Super jump is generally the most committal position for Winter Soldier. He doesn't have strong defensive options, which is why you see a lot of them pick Power Stone. And in a matchup like this, Power Stone's not nearly as effective because a character like Hawkeye is not going to be necessarily trying to get under him and behind him. He's going to be trying to control where he lands and how he comes down, so that he can be contained. He can be contained, so that Hawkeye's partner can capitalize off of a potential mix-up. So as you can see, that he did the up forward arrow there, slowly pushing him back with this exploding arrow, dashing forward, making sure that he can't jump and get around the exploding arrow if Kevin chooses to place it. Johnny A's pushing his way back. As you can see, Venom's trying to close the gap, essentially just trying to pin Hawkeye as soon as he's landing, so that Hawkeye doesn't have is not able to proactively deal with the zip on incoming or anything that Venom follows it up with. And with that, Winter Soldier is able to close the gap again, put the matchup back into the mid-range where his arm can best deal with Hawkeye's projectiles and whatnot. The Venom Trap is perfect placement here. It contains Hawkeye in the corner. If he ever does a mid-range explosive arrow, it's going to cover that. It'll cover laser arrow. It'll cover the low ice shot. Covers a lot of different options that Hawkeye would have should he be able to create space based on push blocking. And Winter Soldier, at worst, will get pushed to about this blue line that you can see. It's the forward tech roll line in training mode. At worst, he'll be pushed there, be behind the Venom Trap, and that'll be actually the most ideal situation for Winter Soldier, so that he can more so control the range. Hawkeye's not able to force the full screen position, so that he can actually get the exploding arrow placed properly, and he can't place one that's closer because of Venom Trap, and also he can't get that downward angled arrow. Alright, so we're going to see another lockdown situation here. One thing to note is that Johnny A is almost never successful with opening Kevin up here. That's one of the main drawbacks to having Venom be the character trying to make the mix-ups and everything work with the Winter Soldier lockdown. And surprisingly, he's not able to kill Dante here. He elects to actually go into the knockdown and everything, try to set Winter Soldier up. Which forces Kevin to box on Wake Up, trying to contain Winter Soldier, trying to get more ideal situations that Hawkeye can heal up to give Dante time to heal up once he's able to actually get some damage in, get some momentum going. So we don't really care too much about this situation right here. This is all Dante being Dante. This is Kevin relying on the other character. Alright, so back in the situation, Hawkeye on the offense. Excuse me. So on the offense, Hawkeye does have tools. He can use the laser arrow there, as we saw, to get under the arm stance. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. It just slipped my mind. So as you can see, that was a push block bait. But at the same time, if Johnny had done an arm stance there, it actually would have lost because the laser arrow landed at his feet, about where that power stone is, you can see by the blue line. And that was essentially what Kevin was able to do there. So on defense, Winter Soldier faces the same issues that Hawkeye does, but that was mostly because of multi-lock with Dante. So it's a little irrelevant to the matchup in general. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and skip this. Kevin manages to run it back to 2-2. This is Game 5, where Johnny A is able to close it, move on to top 8 winners. So let's see what kind of adjustments he makes in the situation. One thing that's important to note is that I don't know how much this contributed, but Bane went up to try to coach Johnny A. I don't know if he told him anything valuable there, but his start of the match was significantly different, as you could see real quick. So one thing to note is that Hawkeye's arrows do not pierce. outside of Spritzer, and that doesn't necessarily allow Winter Soldier to get hit if Venom is blocking. So one thing that you notice is that at the start of the match, we saw Johnny A do the arm stance. So this part right here. And he did light kick machine gun while tagging with Venom. Venom is there for body blocking and body blocking only. He was anticipating that Kevin drop an exploding arrow, or a laser arrow possibly even in this case, to answer the arm stance. Venom body blocking there allows Winter Soldier to get 4 quick projectiles out and actually punish anything that Hawkeye does should he stay grounded. What this also happened to do in this case, as you can see, is that Dante tags in is actually getting hit by meaty bullets, so he's not actually able to block. It's a punish on the tag. Unfortunately, didn't quite work in Johnny's favor. The combo didn't connect, and I think he did jab into jab into heavy punch, which can be a bit finicky at times. Also, I think Hawkeye's hit stop of receiving the heavy punch might have actually been interfering in Dante getting hit sooner. Anyways, so we're back to the situation. We were seeing him drop the trap, trying to be more proactive, trying to contain Dante more. This is a situation, one of the few situations you really see in the matchup where Kevin is more reliant on Dante on point early on, and that's our next big point. So as we could see in the last 2 games, Kevin was taking advantage of Johnny jumping to the air to try to deal with exploding arrow, and was doing not only anti-airs with the forward heavy punch arrows, which I can illustrate real quick. So we had these, and then we have the triple arrows. So that's typically what he was dealing with. And we're going to go ahead and put the exploding arrow about where that Venom trap is. Okay, well, it's a square. Squares to become a circle. So in this situation, as you can see, imagine the arrows being reversed. So we had triple arrow here, now red. And this is about the angle at which the forward heavy punch connects. So what we saw was we saw Winter Soldier staying grounded this time, dealing with Hawkeye stuff, just blocking and baiting him into the air this time. Kevin makes a bad jump with Hawkeye, following with triple arrow, and he's able to do arm into light kick machine gun, which is really the definition of this matchup. And that's how Johnny's able to close the gap, get a massive amount of damage on Hawkeye, and get a setup. The main thing to point out is that the first person that lost a character in this matchup always lost, and typically it was Winter Soldier on Johnny A's side and Hawkeye on Dual Kevin's side. So Dante gets hit here in a scramble. Gonna get shimmied in the box and thrown. This actually doesn't kill Dante, but it stalls, which is the most important thing. There's 4 seconds left on the clock by the time that Dante wakes up. And able to get a mix-up at the last second, but it prevents Dual Kevin from cashing out and get the free level 3. So instead he elects to corner push with, corner carry with Crazy Dance, get the poison damage going. Try to get a better setup here. Reignites the poison damage. And as you can see, which I mentioned in the first game, Johnny A was using Venom Web to try to make sure that Kevin is not pressing any buttons after he does arrows. This is the one matchup where we see Hawkeye actually not be the first character to die when Kevin loses the first character. So we're going to see a lot of exploding arrow. This matchup's actually quite frustrating with Venom. You have to use your partner a lot to be able to body block and just get stuff set up with Venom. So Kevin's able to still push the advantage and everything the way that, even despite not having the best button in the game, which is tag, since Dante is dead, and he's able to take full advantage of it. Boxing, whenever Winter Soldier activates his lockdown super, trying to trade out on resources, which actually is a win for Johnny. But Venom's pretty weak in life. See Venom Web here, blocks. And grenades cover the different trajectories that the bullets don't take advantage of. And as you can see there, you saw the exploding arrow, able to punish Winter Soldier falling. Gonna see super here. And Kevin actually manages to almost make this comeback. He actually takes a throw at the end. I'm just gonna spoil it for everybody, just because I'm not going over all 5 matches. And that's it. So that was a situation where, as you can see, Kevin was able to assert dominance with the exploding arrow, try to push the pace of the match into his favor, try to press Winter Soldier to the corner so that he's not able to really take advantage of the arm stance or anything, as Dante's closed the gap and is able to, get underneath the arm and everything, while Johnny is looking to try to deal with the exploding arrow, try to establish his dominance with the arm stance, and falling machine gun trying to bait Hawkeye into the air. A lot of things going on. It's a very dynamic matchup. As you can see, when someone was about to get pressed to the corner, they were able to push back out, and it was just it was a big tug of war. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I'm going to try to be cleaning it up more as I go, as I move forward, trying to create more matchup videos with this. But feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. This will be on there. And I hope to be looking forward to streaming more soon. So if you want to look out for any more content, be sure to check out the Infinite Summer hashtag. I think it's hashtag INF_SUMR or SMR. So be sure to check that out. And if you want to see any more of my content, you can follow me on Twitter at AirborneIsFly. So thank you all for watching. Stay fly.